engage with developmental language disorder. Between 7 to 8% of us have developmental language disorder, or DLD. People with DLD often have difficulties understanding what others are saying and difficulties producing language for no known reason. People are born with DLD and it continues throughout adulthood. What is E-DLD? E-DLD brings the DLD community together and makes space for information and ideas to be shared. What does E-DLD do? We connect families and adults with DLD to researchers by advertising new research opportunities. We summarise research findings to make research easier to understand for everyone. And we create new information by inviting our members to take part in a yearly survey so we can get a better picture of what life is like for those affected by DLD. We also host events for adults with DLD, for parents of children with DLD, and for professionals. E-DLD is run by university academics. Everything E-DLD provides, from membership to events, will always be free. What positives does E-DLD bring? By listening to the voices of those affected by DLD, we will help researchers to investigate the things that really matter to improve outcomes for people with DLD. Sign up to become a member of E-DLD. If you are a parent of a child with DLD, or an individual with DLD over the age of 16 from anywhere in the world, consider signing up. E-DLD will send you projects you can take part in if you want to. There will be Zoom events for meeting others, and all your information is kept secure and private. For more information, visit our website and sign up today.
Okay, excellent. So once we finally got that sound sorted, sorry about that, hopefully that describes it to you in probably a better way than I am doing on this slide here. But we basically send opportunities out to take part in research projects, and we also ask parents to fill in and individuals to fill in a yearly survey about themselves so that we can also find out more about the DLD community. So where are we up to now? Well, we have so far advertised 25 different research projects to our members, and they can choose to take part in any or none that they want to as it goes along. Over 200 children and their families are now signed up to our database, and in addition to that, 20 adults with DLD, in fact over 20 adults, 23 adults with DLD at the moment, who are involved in Engage with DLD. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about what those people look like as a group, obviously, and first I'm going to start with what the children look like. So where are our E-DLD members? Where do they live? Well, the largest group of people and families come from the UK, not surprisingly, I guess, because that's where E-DLD started. So 70% come from the UK. Then we've got a group from Australia and some people from the US and Canada and Indonesia, and also the other parts of Europe, such as Malta and other English-speaking regions of Europe. So we asked people on the yearly survey to tell us about any difficulties their children have alongside DLD. And as you can see from the chart, one of the most common reported symptoms that goes or difficulties that goes alongside DLD is anxiety. And those of you who are here as families may not be surprised to see that. So we see about 30% of our families with anxiety as well as their language difficulties. We have another group, we have some children who also experience ADHD or dyscalculia, so difficulties with numbers, dyspraxia or coordination disorder, so difficulties with their motor control, dyslexia and reading difficulties, and then fewer with conduct disorder or depression. So there's quite a mix of other difficulties going alongside. And this doesn't mean that they haven't got DLD. So sometimes people are a bit confused about this. These are all things that go alongside a primary language difficulty. So DLD is the primary difficulty, and these are co-occurring difficulties that happen alongside. We haven't got a slide showing the language difficulties that the young people have, but parents report that they have language difficulties very much in line with what you'd expect and what you might have read about in terms of DLD. So we have 95% are saying that they have an expressive language difficulty, 76% saying they've got a receptive difficulty or difficulties understanding what other people are saying to them, and also word finding difficulties very high on that report from parents. So 89% of them saying that children have difficulties finding words when they want to say the right thing. We also ask people to fill in a questionnaire called the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire, and this is about more general behavioural patterns for people with DLD. And here this graph is showing the amount of children, the proportion of children who have difficulties in these areas. So you'll see that nearly 60% say that their children have difficulties with emotional areas of their behaviour, some with conduct or behavioural difficulties, but again, hyperactivity showing some difficulties, as well as peer relationships. There's also this scale on this questionnaire, which is about pro-social behaviour, and that's about being brave really as a friend and being proactive. So helping other people and approaching other people to be your friends or to play within the playground. So there's also some difficulties in that area for some of the people with DLD. One of the things I want to emphasize here is that although these are more prevalent, so more common in children with DLD than children without DLD, they're still not most of the people filling in the survey, with the exception of emotional problems, where we do see that going just over halfway. But most of the other areas of difficulty are affecting a significant minority, so a large group, but not most of that cohort or group. Okay. One of the other things we're really interested in finding more about is sleep habits with people with DLD and children with DLD. This hasn't been researched a lot in the literature, so there's not a huge amount of evidence out there about this at the moment. But what we found is that some things were more common in children with DLD, and those were things like bedtime resistance, so really refusing to go to bed or really kicking up a fight before bedtime, a delay in going to sleep, so reporting that they take a long time to settle and go off to sleep, reduced sleep duration, sleep anxiety, so worrying about sleeping and worrying when you're trying to go to sleep, waking in the night, and also parasomnias, so be sleepwalking and being half awake, and bad dreams were also more common. But some things were more similar to other children, according to the parents who filled in our survey. So sleep disordered breathing, so lots of snoring or waking up because you suddenly can't breathe, and daytime sleepiness were about the same as other children, which is interesting because this one, daytime sleepiness, I've heard a lot of parents report to me anecdotally that that's what they find. They find their children are quite tired in the day. But when we asked them on the questionnaire, that didn't seem to come out as a major issue at a group level. We also asked parents to tell us on a scale from 0 to 100, where 0 was not so good and 100 was excellent, how children were doing at school. And what we find here is that there's sort of, in a way, there's quite a split. There's a real range right across. So some children are struggling, sort of down this end of the scale, and some children are really thriving at school. So there's a real mix there across the whole range. So let's think now about the adults who have joined E-DLD. Where do they come from? They come from the UK and Australia, and some in Canada, and some from Europe. So quite similar, really, a quite similar distribution of adults who are also joining E-DLD and taking part in research projects. And when we ask adults the same questions, we see quite a similar pattern, with anxiety being a common co-occurring difficulty for those people. We also see depression showing more of a sign in adults. But again, I want to highlight that this isn't most of the adults. This is about 35% of the adults. So a lot of people not experiencing depression, but also an important group who are, and that's important for us to know so that we can learn how to support people better. Dyslexia was also in there, and ADHD, and then less so for things like coordination disorder or dyscalculia. We also asked in more detail about mental health difficulties rather than the SDQ for this group. And again, we find depression and anxiety symptoms. So this is rather than saying you are depressed, this is about more subtle forms of emotional or mental health difficulties. So quite a lot of our adults say they have some depression symptoms, some anxiety symptoms, and also, if I jump to this bar here, some difficulty identifying and describing their emotions, which is a line of research which has been looked at more in autism and less so in DLD. So we're quite interested to hear about that as well. People in our survey who are adults with DLD also report having lower self-esteem and also lower self-efficacy. Some of those people do. Self-efficacy is about feeling on top of things, feeling that you can problem solve and get out of a tricky situation, and having lots of strategies to help yourself do that. So we also ask about some other features of what life might be like to be an adult with DLD, and 90% of people said that they get along well with others. But at the same time, 100% of our group said that they sometimes or always had some social anxiety, so some worries and stress around meeting people socially. So there's an interesting picture here, isn't there? Because when those relationships are formed, our adults with DLD tell us they get along well with other people, but at the same time, there's quite a lot of effort and social anxiety involved in that. And in fact, 78% of our group said that anxiety sometimes stopped them going out. But we have a very high rating of adults telling us that they're close to their relatives. So family ties are proving really important in this group. And in fact, these sorts of results are very similar to those that we found in other studies, such as the Manchester Language Study. We also found that in terms of friendships, our adults with DLD very highly said that they had a friend to count on and had a best friend. So that's really good news for anyone perhaps worrying about what their young person will be like as they get older, whether they'll have anyone to have that close relationship with. And that certainly seems to be happening. Okay, so that's the end of my slides. Just want to remind you to find out more and watch our video at our website, and also to sign up if you haven't already signed up, and consider also, if you're a professional here, telling your clients about this